Hi, I'm Andre, and I'm making this video because tomorrow I shall no longer be living in this space. I am moving to a new apartment and am packing up all this stuff for moving tomorrow, which means that I have to move all these freaking books and put them into boxes. And I figured if I have to do that anyway, why not make a quick video in which I share with you all of my favorite authors and books from here. This shelf has books that I've already read and I'm keeping around with me and lug around with me to be able to share with friends and hopefully reread down the line. So I'm just going to give you my favorites from here and hopefully you can check them out or otherwise benefit from the recommendations. Let's go! So first and most recent and most easily accessible and heaviest are the Brandon Sanderson books. So, big books, and that's because this is fantasy, a genre I used to really not enjoy that much, but in the last couple of years I've started reading more and got into Sanderson, and I must say, as someone who didn't like them, I really got into it. He writes really page-turner friendly, kind of entertaining books which are also filled with very compelling characters, really compelling plot, and some interesting ideas. In particular, I think the way he writes flawed characters to become sort of superheroes who save the world and in a way reflects on our own struggles as normal people is very relatable. And so I must say I really got into it. I'll be reading a lot of his stuff. And I actually paid up to get these heavy physical books because I liked them this much. Next, we got Kim Stanley Robinson and his many books that I own. It might be the most of any author on this shelf. As you might see, it's quite a stack. And that's because I really like this guy. So, Kim Stanley Robinson writes science fiction. He writes a particular sort of science fiction, a very realistic, near-term, grounded science fiction. So, there's no kind of superheroes, and the plots really have to do with themes very relevant to the present day of how do societies operate, how do societies develop, and how can we right injustices that surround us. And he does tackle these themes within really interesting science fiction environments. For instance, his Mars trilogy is all about the terraforming and settlement of Mars. And it is one of the probably most well-known and respected science fiction series of the last few decades, and I think that's really earned. It is exceptional, it's very in-depth, it has many great characters, many interesting ideas. It's a little bit dry, it's a little bit nerdy, it's a little bit slow, so it's not for everyone, but it is for me, and I would say if you are a person who really digs in-depth, fairly scientifically based, and near-term science fiction, Kim Stanley Robinson is really a must. In fact, I like this guy so much, I have 2 books autographed by him. I have this one, you can see his signature right there, and right there I have another one, which was pretty exciting. So as you can tell, huge fan, really should try him out if you like science fiction. Alright, we're getting into the back row, which means older favorites, things I've had around with me for a while and that I still love very much. And let's go to another author by whom I've read a few books and who I really would like to get around to reading most of their work, hopefully, which is, and I must say this is a little bit intellectual and maybe even pretentious seeming, but I really do enjoy her work, Virginia Woolf, of whom I have a few books already. So why do I like Virginia Woolf so much? I think out of the modernist authors, out of the early 20th century authors who tried to really capture the way people think, the way people experience daily life, the ones I've read, Virginia Woolf handles this the most. She really could tap into the mind, the thinking, the experience of a person. And I think as we live our lives, we don't have many adventures, and yet somehow we do have little profound moments, little excitements and deep emotions that well up within us. And that happens without any sort of, exciting need to rescue anyone or have any action happen. Within the everyday, we have really interesting and deep experiences, and that's what Virginia Woolf really manages to convey, at least for me. It's not for everyone. It is kind of stream of consciousness writing in which maybe not much happens, but I love it, and I would say if you like the idea of getting into someone's head, then give her a try. Miss Dalloway, her most known classic, is definitely a good starting point. And that relates to my next pick, which is also from around the same time, a little bit later, John Dos Passos and his USA trilogy. So I actually got into this in high school in AP US history, where our teacher made us do little extracurricular activities for points, and one of the things we could do is read some books having to do with history. And so I read, starting out with a 42nd Parallel, which was assigned, and then the two sequels of the USA trilogy, and it is so good. Basically, it has all the same strengths as Virginia Woolf of tapping into people's mind and normal everyday experience, but situated in the flow of US history in the early 20th century. And it jumps around between different characters and different formats, little newspaper clippings, little reports, and in doing so really conveys the feeling of history and how it moved from the early 1900s to, I think, post-World War I. And it is just strangely riveting. You really get to feel like you're seeing how people experienced this time. Now, I don't know if it's true, but that's how I felt. And I felt that the literary techniques that John Dos Passos used in the USA trilogy to convey this notion of people living through history and time flowing within a society really worked. So again, if you like the sound of something like that, a little bit intellectual, a little bit fancy, but also I would say honestly pretty exciting, pretty interesting, pretty out there, worth checking out. And on that note, we can go to our next author, another high school favorite, Kurt Vonnegut. So, Kurt Vonnegut, really famous guy, and for good reason. He writes in a very unique, very fun way, and comes up with some wacky scenarios, and really he is very unique, and his mix of sort of dry, somewhat cynical, somewhat pessimistic, but in a weird way also very humanistic, very empathetic writing of his characters and how they experience life and kind of deal with their trauma or whatever it is they're doing really works. And I would say among the last few, still quite a literary, still quite a fancy author in terms of style, but much more approachable, much more fun, much more entertaining. This is one I could read, sort of get away from my everyday troubles, because it's fun and it reminds you that life can be fun and interesting while also really digging into the difficulty of life at the same time. So, very renowned author, many books, and for good reason. I would say Slaughterhouse 5, which was the first book I read by him, definitely a good starting place. It is, I think, considered his masterpiece for good reason, but I've read now many other books by him, maybe half a dozen, and I have yet to be really disappointed. I mean, it goes up and down, but Vonnegut knows what he's doing. So if you're in a mood for something a little more lighthearted and very kind of witty and dry, Vonnegut is a great author to check out. All right, and then digging deep and finishing up, we have the oldest and most perhaps well-known or acclaimed of all these authors, Dostoyevsky. And he is acclaimed and is a classic author for a reason. He is genius, and I can tell you this as someone Russian reading these books in their original language. I don't know why or how, but the way he writes is just so gripping. Really, not much happens in the book. There's people who are troubled and they come across one another and have long dialogues and monologues, and it takes forever to develop, but somehow he really taps into the soul of these characters, and he really does portray very troubled people who feel like humans, feel like people who aren't just characters, who have a very complicated inner life, and you can glimpse it by their actions but not fully understand it, and you can hear it in their words and in their kind of stresses and weird out there actions which often happen. And yeah, it's really that good. So if you are willing to try to read something longer, these are not fast reads, but they are exceptional. And I'm actually currently reading one of his books after not having been trying to read any of it for a while, The Idiot. It is long, it is slow moving, but I am gripped because of the writing and because of the variety of very kind of interesting, intriguing, complicated characters. Okay, so those are my very favorite authors and books. As you can see, there's many other good ones. I love reading. I think reading is great. And now that we are all stuck at home, I've been personally trying to do more of it. I would recommend, if you're looking to escape from the drudgery and stress of these days, try and pick up a book and read again if you've not been doing it for a while, or if you have, consider one of these authors who I really think are exceptional and in their own ways very unique and special. And I love their books, and I'll keep plugging these books as long as I need to, because just having them here for me to see every day and remember my experience reading them and discovering their work was really special. So I hope you check them out. Let me know in the comments if there's any other ones that are similar that you like, and subscribe, blah blah, rate, etc. Thank you for watching.